Alright, y'all, this is Novice. Seeing as how Under Night in Birth Clear just came out, I think a lot of people interested in these tutorial videos again. So I thought that since I now have a good mic, I would just go through and redo these videos, but with some commentary. Because frankly, these videos are a really good start, but I don't know, it throws me off that they don't use necessarily the right terminology in every case. So I'm gonna try and fix that. So there are 5 courses. Most people can probably just skip the Novice Course, maybe even the Beginner Course, just jump straight into Intermediate, but just to be complete, I'm gonna go and start with the Novice Course. So to start, it's explaining where your health gauges are. It's very, very self-explanatory stuff. They stay in position even when your character changes sides. Like if you've played any fighting game before, you know this already. And even if you don't, you could probably like assume that it wouldn't constantly switch your gauge positions. It talks about standing, which is a weird thing to talk about. Moving forward and back, like, duh. There's really nothing to go on about there. Crouching, any of the 3 bottom directions. Yeah, let me turn on input history so you can see what buttons I'm pressing. So next you have jumping, because you know you have 3 jump directions. A, B, and C. Yeah, it's your light, medium, and heavy attacks. Essentially. You have D, but that'll come up in another video. So yeah, you win rounds by reducing your opponent's health to 0 or having more health than they do when time is over. Guard by holding back or down back, mostly. Yeah, when you win the round, you get a round icon to show you, who won which rounds. Like it's pretty straightforward. Let's see, course selection. We'll go over to the beginner course now. Character direction. Yeah, this is also very, there's not really anything to talk about there. They just are explaining concepts here. So you have the health gauge, you have the excess gauge, is basically your special meter. The grid gauge, now that one's kind of weird. You can read the text there if you want to go more into it. But essentially, it rewards good footsies. Footsies being kind of rock, paper, scissors that you're playing at any moment in a fighting game. Poking with punishing and approaching. There's other videos that you can watch that go more into that stuff. It's teaching about backstep after dashing. There you have A, C attacks. Crouching attacks. Stuff that they're explaining here is just so straightforward that there's not really much to add, so I'm just kind of going through them real quick. Yeah, your A buttons, your A attacks are quick. The attacks are more balanced. Get a little more range. They're a little slower. The attacks will have the most range and the most power, but they're also the slowest. Unique moves, which are your command normals. Basically, hold the direction, press the button. These are your special attacks where you do a button combination. and then press a button. Button functions. Oh, they're saying that when you do a special with different buttons, you get different versions of the special. There's also, you know, it follows the same logic. It goes from faster and weaker to slower and stronger, usually. I'd say for projectiles, it's always the same attack strength for the most part. This is talking about cancels, so yeah, you can press AA or AB. So you have something called auto combos. 3-hit combo, or Gatling, as most games will call it. Special cancels. Very straightforward. You just cancel the recovery animation of one attack by starting another one, a special. Press C. Just teaching basics of a combo. Is jump canceling. If you combine combos, you combine Gatlings into basically if you combine Gatlings, jump cancels, smart steers, passing links, these are ways that you can kind of create your own combos. It means like showing you the logic that it's implying or applying when it creates those combos that you'll see in mission mode. So that stuff's good to understand. Smart steer, yeah, just mash A, you'll do this really cool combo. But it's not going to be the best combo you could do, so you should definitely take the time to learn a better combo, even if it's just one from mission mode. Although I wouldn't recommend that in this game, because when they updated the game for UNICLR, they left the combos in mission mode the same, so pretty much all of them, even though you'll still be able to do them, they're going to be out of date compared to what your characters are capable of now. You mix standing and crouching attacks. Very standard way of adding hits to a combo. So you usually want to do a crouching grab guard when you're blocking, because generally speaking, overhead attacks that would break a crouching guard are slow enough for you to react to. So as soon as they're in the air, or they're just doing a really slow animation that you can kind of recognize, you can generally just always block low and then block high when you need to. And I think one of the, yeah, guarding against overheads. Let's see. Yeah, you can react to it, but you have to be paying attention. So I'm just trying to react to it. Fighting against jump attacks or jump-ins. Oops. Yeah, this is just teaching you how to block jump-ins so that you're not blocking high for too long and getting hit. It's a very common pattern. Throw, reverse throw is just going to be back throw. And the tips can be countered, like, oh. They might try to attack you when you go for a throw. Using a ton of lows to beat back steps. Yeah. kind of showing you some lows that you can do. Overhead jump. Guard stun or block stun. See when you're in that blocking animation. Can't do anything else until you're block. Can't do anything else until you're out of block stun, and that's gonna change depending on the move that you're blocking.
Success.
So yeah, that last one I think was teaching that different moves have you recover from block stun sooner than others. Pretty much just holding a button to recover faster. When you're being hit. Yeah, this is teaching about time over.
Success.
So explaining draws. Command moves.
Success.
Just saying you should use those command moves that they taught about earlier. Command input techniques. Make an arc without letting go.
Success.
Pretty good way of teaching it, I'd say. Oh, this is the dragon punch motion. So the first one was a fireball motion or Hadoken motion. This is the Shoryuken or dragon punch. It's the down motion. The half circle forward motion. This is a charge. So charge back forward. Over time you get a feel for just how long you have to charge. This will vary from game to game and character to character. Just half circle back forward.
Success.
A little difficult on a hitbox, which is what I use. That has no damage. I should practice this myself. Alright, that's it for the beginner course. Start off the intermediate course. This is still pretty simple stuff. This is where I would say to start, because it starts teaching you game-specific mechanics, like assault and aerial assault. This is your air dash. Something to note is that the grounded assault is homing, so from a far distance it'll go kind of far, but from up close it still lands right in front. Whereas the aerial one, it'll just kind of go a fixed distance, so you can do it quick, which is dangerous. But it can also be useful because you get to do stuff like this. But I'm pretty sure this game has cross-up protection, so this game where Street Fighter, then doing this would be like, you have to decide which way to block, and it would be a little bit difficult if you got the spacing right, at least, to determine if you should hold left or right to block. But in this game, pretty sure if someone goes over your head, then you can press left or right to block them. At least in certain situations. Unique moves.
Success.
Alright, that's just saying that you can cancel from one button into a unique a command normal. So that's something that they already went over. Oh, this is saying that dash attacks with the button are not the same as standing or walking attacks with that button. Important to note, it says hold forward while dashing. That's because if you let go of forward, you end up with you basically do maybe like a Kara version, like you're essentially canceling out of a dash to do a standing attack. So you get a little bit more range out of it because you're moving forward right before you do it. But if you hold the button, the command, like the direction button, as you do it, then you'll get the dash attack, which is its own unique attack. So yeah, increase is essentially you hold down the button and you get like a charged up version of that move. You can tell from the white flash. So rush cancel, it's essentially exactly what it sounds like. You're just mashing the button, and you're doing it to kind of get a hit confirmed before you commit to doing a slower attack that leaves you more vulnerable if it gets blocked or whiffs. So chip damage. If you look at the health of the other character, you can see him doing a little bit of damage with these sword attacks. I'm not sure if they explained this in the tutorial, but Hyde's attacks, when he uses his sword, he'll still deal chip damage. But if it's just his limbs, like he's kicking or punching, then you'll see he's not doing any chip damage here. Then if I do a sword attack, there's a little bit of chip. So, and again with the sweep with the leg, there's no chip damage. But for special moves, they always do chip. Even with the weakest version of the moves will deal chip damage. So that's something that's very good to know. Projectiles are shot from a distance. Not really much to add to that. You go into a decent enough amount of depth. Invincible moves, these are also called reversals because yeah, you see how it says reversal on the left there? Basically, when you do a move as a reversal, you're buffering the input while you're in block stun or hit stun, and when you buffer it, that means you're entering the command while you're still in stun time, so you're not actually able to do anything. But if you do the whole command, then it'll be stored in what's called the input buffer, and with the input buffer, the game is essentially remembering for about 1/10 of a second, I think, think it's a tenth of a second in this game, 6 frames. But for a tenth of a second, every second or every frame, which is 1/60th of a second, the game will attempt to activate that command. So if you do a fireball motion, or in this case a dragon punch motion, then for the next 1/10 of a second, every single frame of time that passes, the game will go, okay, can I do a dragon punch now? No. Okay, can I do a dragon punch on this next frame? No. They'll keep trying that until the input buffer ends after that 6 frame window. So that's why it's saying you can just mash a command while you're getting hit in a combo, and that's essentially what happens online when you're doing a combo and then you miss an input and you do it too slowly. So there I do 1, 2, 3. But if I do 1, 2 and I do the 3 too late, it's 1 hit. So that gap is time that the opponent that could use to just do a reversal that has invulnerability frames. So let's see. Yeah, this is just you do a follow-up attack. So certain specials just let you do follow-up attacks, and those are called rekkas. So this any special attack that you can extend is considered a rekka. It's just a term we use. It comes from Street Fighter. Fei Long's moves. It's like the original, the rekka Ken, I think it's called. So EX is saying that when you do an EX move, you spend 100% of your meter, or I guess half a bar. Well, no, 1 bar is 100, so you spend 1 bar and you do a EX attack. It's essentially a superpowered version of a special attack. Then the infinite worth is your super attack. I think this is a universal command, so every character, their infinite worth is, they spend 2 bars, they do a half circle forward, and you get that. Infinite worth excess is the same as infinite worth, except you can only do it when your health bar is red, as you can see at the top. I think it's at 30% of your health, and it always has that same hitbox there, where it's that aura coming out, unlike the infinite worth, which is character specific. Essentially, the infinite worth excess is something that you can mash if you're in that situation. Passing link, again, this is your Gatling. But if you do it in reverse order, it's called a reverse beat. Although, yeah, I guess there aren't much in the way of rules for a reverse beat in this game. I think some other games might have a limitation where you can, for example, only do 1 in a combo. Or they might have more than 3 attack buttons. That's not a thing here, so you can just kind of do, you know, C, B, A, C, A, B. Limitation is that you can only do each button press once. So one thing I'll show off is you can do C, B, A. I don't know if you noticed, but you kind of, the smart steer combo or the auto combo, kind of, it goes forward like it does A and then B. So I can do B, A, A. Well, it's hard to show. I'll show it on the next challenge. This is just saying that you can do Gatlings in the air as well. Alright, so you can do A, B, C. You can do A, B, and then forward B, or 6B. Or you can do A, A. A, A, A. So if I do just standing 5AAA. Oh, by the way, the numerical directions. So you have 1. So just look at the input in the upper left corner. Right now I'm pressing 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5 is just not pressing any direction. 6 is forward. 7 is up back. 8 is up or neutral jump. 9 is forward jump. So that's, if you look at the number pad on a keyboard, then you'll see that that each number represents a direction when you're facing right. So as I was saying, 5AAA gets you the same combo as a 5AB 6B. You can do like 6B B. Well, 6B launches, so I'll just do BAA. You can see I'm doing basically this attack and then that attack, and then I'll repeat it. So this is the same as doing BAB, but you can't actually do BAB because of the limitations on normal combos. So anyway, basic combo with a special cancel after a Gatling. This is saying you can combo into your infinite worth. Careful with my inputs there. You can do a combo from an aerial into a jump ground attack. Alright, so there's a jumping 2C. Let's do off an air assault. An assault normal is pretty much the same as a jump in. The difference being, I believe you can only do one attack off of an assault. Yeah. Saying you can air guard or air block a projectile. Not sure if they mentioned it, but you generally can air block a grounded normal attack. The specials, I think. I might be wrong on that. So yeah, this is saying you can overhead the assault. This is I'd say part of the fundamental offense for this game. You can essentially come in with an assault, with an overhead from an assault, or you can go with a low or a throw, and those are your 3 options for opening up an opponent. Quite important to know when to let guard stun, and yeah, if you end it with a risky attack, essentially an unsafe move, the opponent could potentially use that as a means to counter. So this is basically the game teaching you what happens if you end a block string with a stupid move. It's like, hey, some moves are unsafe. Don't ever end a block string with them. Block string being a series of attacks that you do while an opponent is blocking instead of just stopping. Like, you'd really want to just do a couple of attacks and then stop and then try to do another attack as a frame trap to continue taking your turn. But as you can see, grid meter at the bottom is kinda, it's filling for the opponent as they're successfully blocking attacks. This is something that I'm not sure the game actually explains. that you'll see here. So just looking at that meter at the bottom, see when I walk forward, I'm rapidly gaining grid meter because I'm gaining positional advantage. But if I jump into the corner, I stop gaining. I have to kind of walk forward to get it. But as I retreat, I'm losing a bunch of grid. And it's so after I don't know, 10 seconds or so, 15 seconds, something like that, that timer in the middle of that's around the grid meter, in the middle of it, it elapses, and once it ticks, whoever is winning the grid war there, whoever has more of that meter filled, gains what's called a Vorpal state. You'll see that, let's see. So you'll see there I did 1705 damage. And then 1450 that time. There's a damage bonus when you're in that Vorpal state. So essentially, when you see that grid meter start to get close to filling up, there is there's like a strategic advantage to taking actions that would help you fill that meter, because in addition to that damage bonus that I mentioned, when you're in this Vorpal state, you'll also gain the ability to do what's called a chain shift. And that chain shift does a bunch of things. In case you didn't notice, it empties your grid meter, but converts it into Excess, or special meter. It also briefly pauses the game, essentially giving you a little bit of time to kind of assess the situation. So also you can cancel your block stun with that. So you can also cancel a move. Of course, not every move can be chain shifted like that. But another thing that I did mention is something called the, I guess, Vorpal trait. Every character has some special ability that gets activated as soon as they gain Vorpal. So I don't remember what it is for Hyde, but this is something where for each character that you play as, you're gonna want to know what that Vorpal trait is, because it'll kind of inform what sort of punishment you're in for if you allow your opponent to gain that Vorpal state. This is explaining about throws, block throws, or yellow throws, I think they're called. Essentially, if your opponent is in block stun when you grab them, let me pause. The opponent is in block stun when you grab them. What'll happen is they'll have more time than usual, like a longer window to tech that throw. So it can still work, but if you practice hard, you can essentially react to that yellow aura that you see when you throw someone who's in block stun. And so if you mistime your offense and grab too early, then you can essentially end up in a situation where against a really strong opponent, you just automatically get teched every time you let that happen. And when someone techs your throw, I believe they recover 8 frames faster than you do, so they essentially get to take the next turn. So it's pretty important that you get your timing down when it comes to throw offense. So yeah, rushing after a guard is essentially saying, after you block a series of attacks, and you know that it's your turn to have frame advantage, then you should take that turn and start pressing buttons to try to, interrupt your opponent's offense. This is recovery direction, saying to try to recover forward when you can. Of course, it's not always the best move. I would say it's almost less important to recover towards the middle of a stage than it is to recover somewhere that your opponent might not expect you to, because the thing with, for example, always recovering forward is that if your opponent expects it, then they can engineer their combos in such a way that they have enough frame advantage after the end of the combo to position themselves to essentially be right in your face and start their next mix-up on you as you're recovering forward. Like, they'll know exactly what the positioning is. They might have you recover right over their head in a way that you won't notice until it's too late, and then you try to block their next move, but they're on the they're not on the side that you expected them to be on. So you got to be really careful with your recovery direction. So here the game is actually talking about vorpal state. Yeah, okay, so the timer is about 7 seconds, not 15. Yep, the gauge fills if you move forward, if your attack hits, if you block successfully, and more. So generally, it rewards good footsies when you take actions that give you advantages, such as having more of the stage behind you to use to, you know, decide to retreat if you want to, just to keep your options open, to kind of reducing the amount of space that your opponent has to deal with what you're going to do, also to just having good defense. A lot of different things you can do will increase your grid meter. So if you look into what footsies is and what good footsies is, you'll see that essentially everything that you do that these, you know, footsies handbooks and whatnot will teach you to do, all of those things will advance your grid meter. The TS gauge is a timer for the grid meter, just showing that if you just watch that timer, then you can get an idea of when the next vorpal state check will happen.
Success.
This part, it's weird to me that the game takes this long to tell you about it, because honestly, this is what makes this game so great, is the grid gauge. Like, there's always that little tug of war that's happening even outside the direct combat. To concentration, they're essentially saying that you can spend some of your meter to gain grid meter. Of course, they don't give you any meter to show that's happening. So let me... Alright, so I've gained some meter, and now you can see that it's draining as I'm charging up the grid meter with concentration. I think they actually might have mentioned that in the description, but yeah, force function, you spend your grid meter, then you do some character specific, like unique special attack. For example, with Akatsuki, it's his parry. You can do air parry, high parry, or low parry. Or I guess mid parry or low parry. Yeah, grid break. When you're shielding, you can shield high or low. You recover from block stun, I think 7 seconds faster than usual. And if you successfully guard an aerial normal, then the opponent essentially is kind of... They have... Because you're recovering so much sooner than you normally would, you can usually punish that aerial. And they also can't do a follow-up attack. And when you're grid broken, as you can see by the shattered half of the grid gauge at the bottom of the screen, you no longer gain any grid, and you can't use any grid-based, I guess, functions. So you can't shield, you can't, I don't think you can use concentration. So yeah, shielding also uses meter. Rather, it drains meter. Oh, also you can't be in vorpal state when you're grid broken. Yeah, chain shift, that's pretty much what I said. Oh, this is useful info. Each block of your grid gauge equals 20 excess. So the most that you can change with this method is 120. So 6 blocks. Increase your excess effectively by using chain shift after filling your grid gauge. Yep. Oh, assaulting gives you like a jolt of grid meter pretty much every single time you do it, because you're making a huge commitment. Head 106, and it's charged up to 178 from 6 blocks. Actually, let me see. Do some quick testing here. This doesn't seem right. It said you can get a maximum of 120. So here I have 6 bars.
Success.
Hang on, let me retry this. Alright, 120. Alright. But if I hang on. Just doing a little bit of experimentation here. It's 8.35. 16, so I should have. Yeah, so there's something that they didn't tell you about here. Alright, so with 2 bars, the chain shift in neutral gets you 40. But with 2 bars, a chain shift cancel gets you, well, let's see, 32 minus 8, that'll be 24. So there's a penalty when you chain shift, you chain shift cancel in terms of the amount of meter that you build from it. So keep that in mind. This is talking about veil off. Hold on. Yeah, 100 or more. You gain an attack bonus, or a damage bonus, I should say. What they don't mention is that when you're in veil off mode, oh, they are mentioning it here. Yeah, you can use any move that requires excess. So it'll just burn some of that meter rather than all of what you have left. Or rather, 100 meter. But the cool thing is that if you're in Veil Off, then it'll let you move, and you can burn the rest of your meter to do an infinite worth, even if you only have a little bit left. Time counter pause. Oh, it's saying that you can't timer scam. But it's also saying that if you're almost out of time and you do an infinite worth Exus, then it'll deal the damage before the round ends. Oh wait. It's saying forward, quarter circle forward, A, and then Dragon Punch A, and then quarter circle forward A is the command priority. Essentially, it's saying to try to be careful with your inputs, but they'll try to also be lenient when they try to determine what you're trying to input. That's it for the intermediate course. Next is the expert course. This is where it starts to get a little bit more conceptual what they're teaching. So things like mix-ups. That I'll leave for another time.